Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it.
What if the fastest way to scale your business this year is to let other people sell your intellectual property for you? You know, you may be offering a one-to-one service or a VIP service, and you're trying to think to yourself, well, how can I scale this to the next level? Then this episode is definitely for you guys. I've brought back my really good friend, April Beach. April came on the show, when was it? August of 23, so a long time ago. And for context, April is a licensing specialist. She's created a framework around this. And she's been teaching a lot of leaders, thought leaders, influencers, and so forth around this whole ideology of how to monetize and productize your intellectual property so you can turn it into courses, you can turn it into frameworks. She's a best-selling author. She is an absolute ball to speak to. We could speak to about things for hours. And you know what? I'm a big fan as well. So I'll be open and honest. So without further ado, April, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yes, we almost didn't get here. We almost didn't hit record because we just love talking so
That's
much.
true.
So thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for our listeners today because for you guys, and I always say this at the very beginning, right? Make sure you got your notebook and pen handy because this is a slightly different episode from what we normally do because we do a lot of stuff on leadership. We do a lot of stuff on mindset, April and stuff, but this is a subject matter that not many people have an expertise in, which is all around the whole kind of licensing ideology. And really, it was actually through you that kind of instigated the new ideas about this licensing. But for you guys that are listening in, by the way, make sure you got a notebook and pen handy because hopefully it's going to give you some new ideas and new epiphanies, especially moving into the new year, depending on when you're listening to this, of course. April doesn't know this, by the way, but I'm going to spring it upon her, right? She's going to be coaching me towards the end, okay? And because she knows some of the plans, well, we haven't spoken in a while, so she doesn't quite know what the things are happening right now. But I want you to imagine that she's coaching you. So I want you to imagine that she's sitting on the same sofa next to you and coaching through this concerns, your fears, whatever it is, and any questions that you have around licensing. So let's jump straight in, April. One of the things I really struggled with was this kind of ideology of I'd been delivering a certain model that was working for me. And I know that a lot of our listeners are in professional services. They're trading time for dollars, trading time for pounds. There's then a capacity issue. So when you start hitting that capacity, how can you then take that model and try to scale it? It's very difficult, isn't it? How does licensing fix that problem?
Right. So there's actually, in my mind, a step-by-step process to growing and scaling a business. So what we all know is what you're saying. It's the initial launch of your programs and services, usually in a higher end VIP, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes done with you or for you type of service. And if a lot of your listeners are in that space where if that's your model, let's just say that's our starting point. Typically speaking, and what's all over the internet and has been taught for over a decade is in the next step after that, which is scale, is usually launching a course or launching a membership or launching a mastermind. Those things are very, very well known. Yeah. What I'm talking about is what comes after that. It's step number 3 that I call amplify. So it's after you have done all the things, after you've launched the service. Maybe a course isn't right for you. Please don't launch one just because somebody told you to. If it's not right for you, but just being really mindful, whatever that model is that you're doing, whether it is a one-on-one model and you've hit capacity or a small group or even a course, if even some of your listeners might have these traditional scale models and they're wondering like, what do we do now? Like, is this it? Is this what it looks like? Am I doing 5 launches a year or whatever it is? Licensing comes after that. So it comes after you have done your thing, proven your process, and you want to know what comes next, whether that is a course or membership, or we just go from a one-on-one service into a licensing model. Both of them are possible.
I think also one thing I want to kind of take a little bit of a back step is to really kind of understand and grasp the understanding of what licensing really is. Because to me, when I first came across that word, I thought it was just, hey, I'll just create an online course and license it out, and that was it. That was literally my knowledge base of what licensing is. But what is it really, April? Give us some context.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, let's start here. So the type of licensing that most people are familiar with is like music licensing or brand licensing, or if your kid has like a Mickey Mouse backpack, we license the visual of that. Sometimes we'll license intro music in the beginning of a podcast. That's a type of licensing that 99.9% of people know about and talk about.
Yes.
The type of licensing that I do is totally separate. We're talking about licensing processes, trainings, methods, or systems to other companies. So my definition of licensing, it fits into like this little niche that nobody really is even really aware of what it is or that they can do it. So that's why I love talking about this, because people are going to leave here going, oh my gosh, I never knew all these things that were possible for my business. I want everybody to get really excited, which you will, I promise you. So what we're doing is we are taking your proven method, process, training, or service, and we are allowing other companies to do two things with it. They can either resell it, if you will, or license it as a forward-facing product, or in a lot of cases, they could bring your training on board just for their teams. So they're going to either use it externally for something, add it to maybe some other services they have and augment their other services with it. Or if you are like a sales expertise or wherever it may be, they may bring your training internally to actually train their teams on it. So my definition is that when we do this,
yes,
it is so that by doing this, we help the company that licensed your material provide a better service or provide a better training or provide an elevated experience. We want to help your licensee increase their sales or save on a loss. Everything is about how we can help the other company with what you have. And when we lead it in a forward facing, how can what I have help you do, deliver whatever it is better to your teams or to your clients? That's when we know that we've won with licensing. And that's the type of licensing that I talk about.
So, and I think you've really hit a good point there. And one thing that I'll add to that, and one thing that I have found with licensing in particular, is that it also can create a unique selling proposition or a positioning tool. Because licensing to me is a, you've got companies, you've got individuals that have huge authority, but generally what they lack is positioning. Because if you have authority plus positioning, generally that gives you trust, it gives you credibility, but more importantly, it gives you gravitas. I don't know if you agree on that.
Mm-hmm. I do agree with that.
Good stuff. When you have interactions, especially with thought leaders and so forth that have been doing their thing for quite a significant amount of years, and you'll have a lot of those conversations, what are the common concerns or the resistance that comes from them with regards to licensing? So they've obviously approached you and they're like, yeah, I'm interested in this. Where does that resistance come from? What is it that they're trying to figure out? What they have in terms of their IP framework process, they don't feel like there's any value to it. What are some of the objections? And let's go through that.
Right. Okay. So there are actually two different objection levels.
Yep.
So if I can speak to those.
Sure.
So we have the really well-established thought leader, household name, all of us know who they are, and I can talk about their objections next. But let's talk about the objections of the 6-7 figure person who has an established business who wants to get into licensing.
Sounds
First and foremost, every single person in both levels literally say, I just don't know what I don't know. Help me. Like, where do I even start? What do I release? And there's always questions around like, what do we have and who should we license this to? That's common. And that's just not knowing yet. And those things are easy to get through with some education and some licensing IQ. But those common objections with this level, with the leader, with the established business leader, is exactly what you said. Is it good enough?
Yeah.
Why would somebody want this from me? Who on earth would buy this or license it? Why do companies spend money on this? And so that is what everybody's thinking. Other objections are, I've never worked in corporate before, so can I actually sell a program to corporate? Or I have, never, I'm not a university professor, so would a university really want my post-grad training program to help business professionals, whatever it is? It comes from the unknown. We, obviously, as human beings, have a tendency to fear the unknown. And so because it is an unknown territory, it just means that we don't have enough information on it. And that it really comes with education and understanding what actually makes a program valuable, period, across the board. And then what makes it valuable to other companies or industries. Those are two really important things that we want to identify. Is it by itself valuable? And then why would it be valuable to a university or a banking corporation or a nonprofit?
So basically what you're saying is that in order to overcome that, and obviously you are educating them on the benefits and so forth, but there needs to be some sort of strategic and mindset shift that needs to happen on their part in order to fulfill and to kind of justify to themselves, if that makes sense.
Right. And that mindset shift comes from understanding the facts.
Yes.
Yes.
I can get that. And also, I don't know about you, but this is something that kind of came up when I was kind of contemplating on this whole ideology of licensing. Is that, and again, maybe this is a common objection from conversations, but I felt like back 3 years ago, before I'd even discovered licensing, and when we had these initial conversations, I didn't want to alienate the people that I was working with. And so I had this kind of call it fear factor, if you want to call it that, right? Where, hey, so I'm comfortable. I've got my business. It's making a lot of money for me. Why do I need to shift to licensing? And it's kind of theoretically, it made sense, right? But reality was do I want to go there?
Yeah. Okay. So there are two things here. First of all, what you're talking about is the answer to a question that is a common question that is, my license while I'm still selling B2C, and how does that work? And what is the strategy around that? Common question.
Yep.
And then the second part of it is honestly, and you didn't ask it directly, but people are thinking it subconsciously, how this feels like a big undertaking. How long is this going to take? I don't really know what I'm getting into. I'm not really sure if I want to put the time and the energy into this. 100%. So do you want to go down both of those pathways really quick and talk about it?
Let's do that. Cause okay. I tell you, I have been down that path, so we can talk about that 100%.
Okay. So there is a strategy about if you are, actually, let me back it up.
Yep.
The only reason why you are qualified to even have the conversation about licensing is because you have a B2B business and you're good at what you do and you deliver predictable, measurable, transformational results. So that, first of all, the understanding is everybody who's licensing also has the B2C business, period. Okay. So that's not abnormal. That's what qualifies you. So we want to have, again, processes or trainings that have delivered other people results. So there is the answer to who can license. Are you good at what you do? You're not winging it. It isn't copied from another coach and regurgitated, and then you stole something and then you just created something out of somebody else's thing. It has to be your own unique methodology. It has to be something you've tested. I mean, certainly concepts, everything that we build comes from established concepts and you make it better with your own unique sauce, right? But Have you tested it? Do you have happy people or companies or, whoever that is? And are you good at what you do? And I'm not like people always come to me like, I'm not the licensing police. Like, if you're good at what you do. So let's work with ethics. Are you just pulling this out of thin air, or have you actually been doing this for a while and you have proof? The time will tell, because nobody will license from you if you haven't gotten results before anyway. So it'll solve itself. But that's the first thing. So being that, of course, everybody here has, and even if you haven't tested it for as long as you might want to, we're all given a unique genius that is a process, system, training, method, service, whatever. Everybody has their own unique secret sauce. I personally believe that. Yeah. So now we're going to say, now you still want to sell that B2C side. And you want to make sure that that sustains. So usually what happens is, to get into licensing, we ask ourselves, do we want to either, number one, take some of the same trainings, or are we licensing the same training B2C that then we're also looking to license that method or asset into companies? If that's the case, we want to be very careful that we are not, alienating or cutting out services or cutting your legs out from underneath you. And we want to have a strategy to license into other industries that your current B2C offers don't touch. That is a smart business move. This is scaling. It's increasing your value, so we want to do that. So the strategy of who then we would license to is important if you're continuing to actively sell the exact same asset. Some people I talked to are retiring assets and only moving them B2B. Some people, it is this dual strategy until we might tilt the scales, and then they, a year or two, might say, hey, listen, we just don't really want to sell this B2B anymore, or B2C anymore. We just want to license it. That's fine. So there's strategy behind that. And so that is the first thing. And then the second thing is that I know I wanted to go to like the mindset of the actual leader, in like the established, well-known thought leader as well. So hopefully everybody feels good about there is a B2C strategy, and just, don't shoot yourself in the foot, and make sure you have good contact. And then I'm going to talk about how long it takes here in a minute. But I just want to go back to that 7, 8, 9-figure leader, where I'll talk to them and they have like 20, 30 years of assets, so many assets. Usually the mindset hesitations around that leader, honestly, to be at that point, they have passed so many mindset issues that I have, you know what I mean? Like their mindset, we got you, to be there. But really what they're looking for is, what's my legacy? How do I increase the valuation of my company? How do I decrease my costs? How do we expand the reach of our work into other countries or regions or industries? They could be a leader in a business industry and maybe want to get into education. So that the mindset really is more around, what is the strategy that isn't going to take me any time to do this, or very little time to have even a greater impact than we already have? Let's go to 9 figures or whatever that would be. Yeah. Everybody across the board is like, I don't know what I'm doing. This feels big, and it feels big just because it's new and we haven't crossed these pathways before. So understanding, let's talk about how much time licensing takes. Licensing is very little as far as time consumption. What I mean is, the hardest part of licensing is what happens in your brain first, and it's laying out the licensing strategy on paper. It's understanding what you're taking, how you're remodeling it. We lay it out on paper, including the assets and that accepted or planned rollout plan of that content. And then we align it with the industry, and we price it and all that stuff, and we sell it on paper first before we ever go and build it. So it's very minimal lift. What anybody needs to be able to commit to go into licensing is give yourself permission to have about 25 to 40 hours to literally sit down and build your strategy. You can do that in 1 week, if you really think about it. And then really the sale part of licensing is very, old school. We don't have to run ads for licensing. The sales funnel for licensing is very, very simple, low maintenance, light lifting.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take this opportunity to make you aware of a brand new tool that we've just created called the Exit Readiness Assessment. Now, it is for founders and CEOs that are looking to exit from their business operations.
Now, it doesn't matter even if you're not looking to exit right now, I would highly recommend to go and take the assessment straight away. It helps you to identify areas in your business that you need to work on to help you towards that exit strategy. And at the end of it, you get a personalized report on some of the areas that you're doing particularly well in and some of the areas that you need to make some improvements to. Make sure you head over to readytoexit.scoreapp.com. That's readytoexit.scoreapp.com. Enjoy. You've highlighted some really good points here. I want to pick up one thing that you did mention, which was you had mentioned like around, so if someone's got their secret sauce, their methodology, whatever it is, and you mentioned the word test to be tested. Now, if you've got, should we say, I don't know, framework, process, whatever that might be, and you want to license that out and you haven't, should we say, I wouldn't say tested it, but you've got a huge amount of testimonials or social proof with clients that you have worked with in the past, does that count or does it have to be separately?
No, yeah, that absolutely counts. If you have utilized your method and framework, process, or service on any, company, individual, and you personally, I mean, this is where it comes to ethics, you personally believe and know that it works and you've seen people gain results. To me, that's a green light. That's awesome. We have something great here and people are winning from it. So now let's help more people win from it.
Yeah, I think you make a really valid point there because I feel like that's probably one of the big hindrance that holds people back from licensing. It's like, well, why would anyone want to buy something or license it if I don't have the proof to back it up? That to me would make zero sense, of course. But
yeah, and they're not going to buy it, right? Like maybe if you're not really sure, take it to market and then we'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I love not wasting time or money. So let's just test it some more until you're sure.
Exactly. Now, I'm just thinking about some of our listeners here, which are mainly in professional services. Can you give us maybe, I mean, you work with such a wide, diverse amount of clients, industries, etc. Are there any specific types of professional services? How is it that we could use licensing as a way to maybe scale, say, a law firm or scale, say, an IT consultancy or whatever it is? Like, can you give us maybe an example of how maybe a client of yours has gone and done that?
Yes. Okay. I'll give you two examples with as much detail as I can
Sure.
and share. Former client who is a CPA, and they have a very unique process. And their process goes a little bit beyond just regular CPA services into some of the other solutions that they provide. And they created a very unique, how should we reference it? It's almost like an intake process or a flow that they went through, call it like an assessment.
Okay,
and then that unique assessment, we can license that. That is a process. That is a method. So pause everybody here for a moment and realize it's not just trainings or courses that we license. We can license SOPs. We license assessments all the time. These are things that are very, very helpful. They're smaller licensing deals. We're not going to license them for $1 million, but who cares? Let's do 10 of them for 10,000 a short period of time. And that sounds good to a lot of people, and they went through and they built this assessment, tested it within their own organization, and then license it to other organizations. So that's an example of one. Another one is also very similar to that assessment. She's so unique in what she does. I have to be careful not to give away too many details, but she is a designer of sorts, like in the fashion space. Very well known, but her company goes into certain places and does design services. And it's very expensive to work with her. And they wanted to provide more services to other businesses, frankly, that couldn't afford to work with them. So it's not always, this next level thing. It could be, hey, let's increase our sales by hitting an audience that really couldn't afford us. And so it's licensing her methodology in what they do for others. It's a little bit different. It's never, and this is why that beat us, what we're still selling versus what we're licensing. We need to have some strategy. It's never going to compete with hiring her and working directly with her, but we've been able to take parts of certain processes and license them to like a DIY version. And
Got
that
it.
saves from having other organizations have to pay to bring her teams on site.
I think it's a great idea. I think you made a really valid point at the very beginning where, especially if you are working, especially in services, actually, you've got done for you, which is normally top premium, top dollar, 50-50. And then you've got kind of the DIY model, which is what you were saying around licensing as well, which I think is a great idea. Where does niching come into this? How important is niching as part of licensing? And does it make it easier to license a particular product framework to a particular niche? Or
Yeah, so this is actually really balanced. What we know is we want to sell something that companies already know they're looking for.
okay,
So products that aren't super niche are always sellable. So there's always like sales and marketing systems and AI now, which is also not niche anymore. There are companies that are out there. If we have something that company knows they already need help with it, which is usually like, these top areas where everybody knows they want to spend money, then those things license really well because they're top of the mind for organizations to bring in. But then there's this separate side of it that is very niche. So I have clients who are neuroscientists, for example, and they specialize in like wellness and sleep and all these other things. And they're so niche that the way they bring their systems into companies is much more specific in their methodology. And when we do that, we need to find the companies that value that niche. I'll give you another example. I just got off a sales call this morning from a woman or with a woman that's also like, she's just brilliant. She's 80 years old. This is one of those people that just has
wow.
tons of stuff, right? And she's like, what's my legacy? What am I going to do with all this next? But she's in the spiritual space.
Okay.
And what she does it can go into teams, right? And our conversation was, in order for this to sell on a corporate side, you need to find the companies that value that.
Yes.
And so the ones that do, you're a shoe in, we win, but it's not every company. So it really depends. So both sides. I've worked with very, very niche clients and then very general, here's our, winning sales process. Take your teams all through this.
Got it. Love that. Some good stuff. One thing that came to my mind, because there's different licensing models, isn't there? And which we haven't yet discovered. Talk us through the different models that people, because I always find that when like we spoke about at the very beginning, is that we think licensing is some sort of course or whatever it is, but actually it's much more than that, isn't it? What's the different licensing models, number one, but how do we know which licensing model is going to fit to what we actually want to deliver?
Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. So I will provide as much clarity on that as I can because it's different for every single company. That's a big part of like the deep work we do is to find that connection. But I'm going to give you guys a framework so you can start thinking about it. So first of all, the most common things people think about in licensing is like, what's a train the trainer? Is that licensing? So a couple models are just what I call straight license, where we zip up a training or process or SOP or whatever it is. We release it into a company. And these are my favorite ones. And then we say, okay, great. See you later. Bye. We'll talk to you in 2 or 3 years when it's time to renew. That's it. That's how I license my stuff, you guys. It's like, okay, this is great. Thank you for paying me for that. And I'll talk to you soon when it's time to pay me again. And we just like send it away and there's no management. That's just a straightforward license.
Love it.
Now, on top of that, there is like a train the trainer model. What if we want to have this release and then there's a model where they might want a facilitator or somebody to oversee their employees or to deliver your content. So that's another model that's really common. That model also, so if anybody's here and they're thinking, wow, maybe I can license to like a university, that would fit into kind of that train the trainer model because we're equipping a professor or a teacher to facilitate your program. So still within that same model. And then there are also licensing models with certifications. So certifications are anybody with a certification. Stacking licensing on top of that is a shoo-in. It's like we have the people that are good at what you've taught. They've proven that they know their stuff. what comes next? We want to give them permission to then also maybe license your systems, processes, training. It's like a business in a box for people that are qualified already. And so that's another comment. There are actually 5 licensing models, but those are the ones that people would relate to the most. Now, to your next question, choosing what to give them, that's going to be a different extension of what the model is. Is it a straight model? Are we zipping it away? Do we need leadership materials as well to go with that or not? Is there a certification protocol that we're requiring if, let's say, a company is releasing the content? So the connection between exactly what is concluded and what we have is going to be based on 2 things, the model, but also the industry. So the model is also dictated by the industry that we're licensing into and really what is the best model and rollout plan for them. And the last thing I will say to that, however, is it's just becoming even more clear this year, especially. We've all felt it, so we're just going to say it. It's been like a really kind of weird economy. Things aren't really moving a lot. Everybody has a lot of money, you guys. They just aren't really sure what they want to do with it right now. Companies are the same. Okay, so if this drops like towards the end of when we're talking about the year, but this is a really good rule of thumb whenever you're listening to this episode. We don't want to give them everything in the kitchen sink. With licensing, less is more. So if you have a program, let's say it has all these trainings and all these systems, typically speaking, if we were to take that whole exact program and present it to a corporation, they're like, wow, dude, that is way too much. We can't onboard that. This is an overkill. So we don't usually pitch these huge license programs. Now, 5 years ago, those were the ones who were selling. It was kind of like the whole like course boom still, like bigger the better. Give me all of it. Now we're seeing companies saying, you know what? No, we want simple, faster results. And then once you get in with an organization and you're a vendor with an organization, then they just come back and keep licensing more and more of your stuff.
Are you planning to sell your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Then you already know it's not just about finding a buyer. It's about actually protecting what you've actually built. That's where our sponsor, Adam Benedict, comes in. They're one of the leading premier M&A legal firms trusted by founders to simplify complex exits, protect value, and deliver results. And if you want a smart, smoother, and strategic exit, visit adambenedict.co.uk.
I like that. Yeah, I wrote that down. Actually, that was a really good point. Actually, simple and faster. People want quick results, as you rightly pointed out. So, in terms of and here's a thought process that came through my mind was, so I'm sold on the idea of licensing, April, right? I've got my ideal clients that I'd like to have conversations with. The big question is then, how do I pitch this idea? Like, where does that initiate start from? Because I might be really new to licensing and I might limit the amount of data that I have up front about if there's an actual market for this. How do you advise your clients in terms of like getting that data, or would you recommend like an MVP? Would you start up some sort of wait list? Like, how would you go approaching to see if there's an actual market for what you're actually selling?
Right. So first and foremost, there are 3 ways to sell licensing. Yep. So let's kind of start there. And then we're going to go back into number 1 and dig a little bit deeper because that's what you're talking about. So that number 1 is like organic outreach. How do we connect with these people? We'll come back to that. Number 2 is actually speaking or teaching workshops. So people that, and these don't have to be huge stages, but people that have a process and they love to go into either of their companies or talk on a certain process or a training or a workshop, licensing is we actually have a process that we actually sell a license program on the backside of that. Because if you think about it, you're being paid to go and give a preliminary introduction or a solution. And the best thing for that team or whoever you're speaking to next is then the ongoing, what I call an afterbird implementation, which happens to be your licensing systems. That's the second way. The third way is selling through partners. That is the fastest way to sell licensing. There's a process to do this. We are not talking about affiliate partners, link clicking, percentage off like we know in the B2C side. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about finding key people that already have relationships with or within the industries or the companies that you want to have access to. So an example of this is a client who ended up closing a licensing deal in it's like 9 or 11 days or something, because she ended up connecting with a corporate consultant that already had access to an organization. And his job was to go in and find a solution to the problem that her licensing program happened to solve. And so that is really fast. And advisors or consultants or people within organizations already, their primary objective is to solve problems and to be valuable. Well, guess what? Your licensing product might be that value that also elevates them. So I love selling the fast way. I personally don't feel like selling anything myself. And so I'm always like, how can somebody else sell this for me? I'm going surfing. You know what I mean? That's just what I want to do. Right. So, but let's go back to number one, because regardless, we have to have a presence to develop that trust. So what is that organic relationship building? What does that really look like? So going back to, how do we approach companies and pull up the telly and we're like, hey, listen, I have this really cool thing. You totally need to listen to this and what I'm going to say and buy it. Well, that is constantly changing. It actually changes so much that I have sales experts on my team that actually work with our clients that have these different niche sales processes. But overall, and you don't have to have an expert to do this. I'm going to teach you how to do this. I just like being an over deliverer to people. And I also don't like to sell myself. So I appreciate these people. So
Sure.
What we're saying is that first, I want you to go through in any place that you already have an established relationship with. So we're always going to go with warm leads, even if you're 2 or 3 degrees away. Who do you know that might know somebody? If we're talking about a LinkedIn strategy, which is a very popular strategy for developing thought leadership and licensing, who do you know that knows somebody else and knows somebody else that we can share what you do and provide an introduction? That is certainly one way. If you don't, can I drop a name on here if that's okay? Like a good reference?
Absolutely. 100%.
One of my favorite people who teaches this, and I'm so grateful because she's taught this directly to our clients, is Michelle J. Raymond. Do you guys know her?
I know
on
Michelle
LinkedIn.
Raymond.
Okay, so I love Michelle. Following somebody like Michelle and diving into understanding her relationship building and trust building strategies is what I would do, and just kind of understand and pull from them as far as from a LinkedIn standpoint goes. But what we're looking for is just starting conversations. We just want to start conversations. So we're going to go the warm route, but now let's go the cold route. How do we start cold conversations so somebody has no idea who you are? So certainly with licensing, we don't run ads. We don't run funnels with upsells and things. Nobody in the corporate world is looking for your order bump, and they're never going to be in there. I mean, we go, I'm aging myself because I'm 49, but it's we go back to the way with licensing that we used to sell things when I used to go to in-person events and hand somebody my business card, right? That's what we're looking for. And so you want to look for getting in the same rooms or being in the same environments that the key decision makers or champions who would value your work are in those spaces. What are the groups that they're in? If you love doing in-person things, what are the events that they attend where you can go and you can connect with them? I have a client that's in one of our programs, and she joined this group, some group in some big city in Texas, this leaders of Dallas or whatever it was, right? And she's in this roundtable with all these different business leaders. And this afternoon, she had a key conversation with a huge decision maker because she was in the same room and that was part of a network. Now, that's all she did. She's not one of those people that goes to masterminds everywhere. She found one key place where she could connect. And this one partner is worth millions of dollars to her. And they were able to start a conversation. So, we are going back to, especially this year, we are going back to the days of, who do you know, or who can you provide value to? Whose hand can you shake? And it's really, really interesting because this is where people are going to get uncomfortable, because a lot of people who've been in business for especially the last 10 years, maybe there's a little, and I'm not saying this everybody, but there might be a little bit of kind of hiding behind the funnels, or our copywriting needs to be good. When we're talking about this is either somebody on your team, if you're like me, because I don't prefer to do these things myself, so it doesn't have to be you, or you being able to articulate and say, hey, I'm April, and I'm so excited to meet you and hear about what you do, because guess what? I have these amazing tools that could be very helpful for your team to save money or increase cost. And you say the 2 pain points and you start a conversation. So we are going back to the talent or the gift or whatever it is of communication. And so again, partners sell fastest. If you don't want to be this front runner communicator, speaking, webinars, roundtables, fireside chats, it doesn't have to be in person. Any sort of events where you're bringing together key people that could build relationships to pour into them, provide solutions. And then, of course, there's the old school shaking hands and kissing babies.
Ladies and gents, by the way, that was the fastest masterclass in lead gen that you will ever find. So I just wanted to say that, right? So big up for April Beach, by the way. That was amazing. I love that. And I think that for you guys that are listening in, by the way, this should give you so many different ideas. Like seriously, unbelievable. Love it. Listen, I know that we're coming towards the end of our conversation, but I want to make sure that we squeeze in some fun time. So what I was going to say to you is we always have, and this is something that we have never done, by the way, me and you, but about I don't know,
sitting up straighter. I feel like I need to be, I was sitting crisscross applesauce. I feel like I need to be sitting up.
America leads the world in medicine development. It matters. We get new medicines first, nearly 3 years faster. 5 million Americans go to work because we make medicines here at home. And not relying on other countries keeps us safe. But China is racing to overtake us. Will we let them, or will we choose to stay ahead? When America leads, America cures. Let's tell Washington to keep us in the lead.
Learn how at americacures.com. Paid for by pharma.
Sitting straighter for this. Okay.
Absolutely. So for you guys, as you guys know, if you are a regular listener, what we tend to do is when we bring in a thought leader, right, or an expert onto the podcast, I get them to coach me. So we're going to have a bit of fun now. April kind of knows what I've been, but not really because we haven't spoken in a long while. So I'm going to get her to go into coaching mode with me. She's going to do me. And I want you to imagine that you're being coached by her. All right. So this is very important. Make notes. That's whatever.
Definitely.
Stop what you're doing in the gym. Stop what you're doing in the car. Pull over, whatever the hell. Just make notes. All right.
Timestamp. 43 minutes or whatever.
Exactly. So make note of that.
This.
So where should we start on the coaching side of stuff, April? Where do you want to go with this?
Mm-hmm. So first I want to know what your vision is 10, 20 years from now for this work. This is really important. Yeah. Because of the fact that with licensing, I've licensed my stuff for 17 years. With licensing, we can create change for decades and decades to come. But also with licensing, once we put it out there, we don't get to take it back. So this strategy is the most important thing. So where do you see where do you want your work? And I need to know, because you and I, we're friends, right? I need to know what you want your lifestyle to look like as well, because then we'll reverse engineer that into the model as well. So share me those things.
Great question. So I think for me, and as you know, I've been doing this for a long time, right? A very long time. So I've been going through and some of you listeners will know this. I've gone through some massive shifts in the last 12 months, like huge. And I feel like in answering your question, one of the things that I really want to be known for is helping more baby boomers scale and exit their business. That's what I want to be known for. And there's a real underlying factor behind this. As we know, baby boomers control 80% of the world's wealth, and most of them don't have an exit strategy. Like for some of you guys that maybe have been in business for a long time, some of you don't have an exit strategy. You just want to wind the business down. To me, that makes me feel sad. And I feel there's a real opportunity where, hey, I want to be known to help these guys, empower them and say, you know what, there's a better way. You have an asset. Like use this as your pension pot, whatever it is. I want to help you guys. So that's kind of where I see myself in the next 10, 20 years.
Okay. Do your clients ideally, do they really want to sell or exit, or are they just folding it in and we're just looking for another option? Talk to me a little bit more about that.
It's a great question. I think from my perspective is that because they've been in what I call operator mode for such a while, they don't know what other options are. They don't know what an exit is. One of the big things that I have found, especially personally, is knowing what that identity shift is. once they've exited their business. Like, what does that ideal life look like? What does that dream lifestyle look like? And I think if you've been doing something for so long, you're kind of in this comfort zone. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, where you've been in operating mode for such a long time, is that you just don't know what that life looks like. And so there's a real struggle that they really, in hindsight, really struggle to know what that exit is. So in hindsight is, yes, they'd like to exit, but they may feel, because they've been doing it for so long, they don't see value in what they do. They don't believe they do have an asset, and they don't believe that people reward their hard graft after 35 years.
Okay. Tell me about your process without
Sure.
obviously sharing too much here. What's your unique process or method in what you do?
Sure. So I've created a framework to be able to help what I call pre-exit founders to be able to walk them through the 3 stages of exiting their business. Okay. So I've created the framework stages 1 and 2 because I specialize in the pre-exit stuff, which is normally someone that's thinking about exiting a business generally, but they're not ready for the next maybe 2 or 3 years, or they don't have their kitchen in order to be able to do that.
Okay. Talk to me about what you want this to look like for you. You shared what helping your clients look like, but what do you want your time, life, work, when we're looking even like 5 years from now, what's a perfect week look like for you? Who do you want to be connecting with? Where do you want your time to be spent? What sort of involvement with these clients do you want to have?
I've been developing this particular framework, but it's 33 years of my best work ever. So it's kind of like the masterpiece for me. And as you know, it's expensive to work with me. It's not cheap, right? It's same for you. That's not cheap. And a lot of people can't afford me. I've identified a number of industries that take part of that, what I call exit process. So it could be corporate finance. It could be accountancy. It could be legal. They're all part of what I call moving machine, but there's a lot of components, a lot of parts that need to go in order to make that transition smooth for the founder. You'll know this because you've exited your business yourself. Mm-hmm. And so for me, what is my ideal work? I only want to work with the very few people that want to, the legal firms more specifically, that want to create a unique selling proposition. They want to increase revenue, but they also are driven by change as well. So they know that they're changing, they're chasing transactions. They all want mergers and acquisitions deals. Mm-hmm. But the challenge is that everyone wants mergers and acquisitions deals. They're coming in at the very, very end, whereas I can provide a framework which attracts founders that are not quite ready to exit their business, but could be ready in the next 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So here are answer me again. What sort of time capacity are we looking at as far as how involved do you want to be with these businesses 3 to 5 years? Do you love spending time with them? Do you want to provide advisory services? Or are you really looking for, like what we were talking about, something that could be more of a straight license, see you later, bye?
Yeah, I think for me is that I'm thinking license with some sort of certification or a train-the-trainer model, and I'll be working directly with the corporate teams. So they law school didn't teach them marketing or business acumen, of course, but I want to provide them with an extra artillery to their war chest that provides them with not just legal resources and legal stuff, which is what they've already been trained to do. I want to provide them with a framework that helps them to go from lawyer to advisor.
Right. Perfect. Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So my recommendation is going to be that you license your framework process. First of all, the first step is going to be as a turnkey asset that these firms can bring on board. And the reason why is all the same reasons why you said. So the pain points, of course, are going to be to increase their sales, increase their client lifetime value, all of those things for these legal firms. In addition, it's also going to be valuable for them because your framework will provide ways that they can partner with CPAs and other services so that then they can also increase and create more of a elite services, if you will, buy this initial framework, then there's their legal fees, but it helps kind of circle in other services as well, which depending on what their financial relationship looks like for that, that can also be beneficial. So start with the core framework. Start with what do they need to know, need, understand. Take the framework that you currently have. And then what I would actually recommend is for you to stack on top of that train the trainer with a short period of advisory time also with you. So the train the trainer, I want you to create trainer guides, facilitation materials, tools. They can have the framework, but then you can create some pre-recorded courses and things that people down the road 2 years from now that didn't get to meet with you live, they can access it too. So anybody in their organization that actually could be assigned to be these overall consultants will be trained and equipped. But in the beginning, what I feel is really important with this, because part of what is important, just knowing you for as long as I've known you too, I want to retain your thought leadership. So I want you still to be like the guy. All right. In order to do that, first of all, we need to talk about white labeling, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it at first. You don't need to do that at first. I would name this framework, if you haven't yet, something that we can trademark and become very well known. Certainly we need to copyright the process as well before you license it. But then what I want you to do is I want these firms to be able to have the Adam Strong come in and say, hello, welcome. So glad that you guys got this. This is why it's important. And to have you build a relationship with the leaders in the firm. And we can do that in an onboarding period of time. It can be just one onboarding meeting. It can be the first 90 days, like equipping their trainers. So we have a straight license of the tool. We have a train the trainer facilitator guide. And then we stack Adam virtually or live, whatever that looks like, on top of it. And so the product itself is always much more than the framework. The product itself is Adam and the implementation and the rollout and how you've thoughtfully created it to be uniquely used by them. That would be a very, very valuable licensing program, because we can prove that they can increase their sales, they can increase their lifetime value, whatever that's called in the legal field of, basically their clients, whatever they're allowed to ethically call it, but they can charge them more. And they have somebody that has equipped their teams. And, what's really interesting, we see this with healthcare as well. What's also valuable to them is that they want to be better than the other firms. So this public relations, how is this marketable? But that knowing that also tells us that what I want you to do is consider some sort of exclusivity at first. So there are 3 different ways where we can provide some sort of exclusivity. You can provide exclusivity like how it's delivered, meaning you can limit and say, hey, listen, you're only allowed to deliver these frameworks to in-person clients that come into your office. Or can they provide some sort of online? So it's like their use case delivery is some sort of exclusivity. Secondly, you can provide exclusivity based on their area of expertise. So if it's one firm, then they specialize in one thing in a certain area, whatever that is, that's another way. Or you can provide geographic exclusivity, which still kind of fits into that. It's the only firm in Connecticut that has this system. And then the third exclusivity is, even if you provide some sort of exclusivity, you can limit it. You can say, you guys are going to be the only ones I'm going to license this to in, New York, whatever, not all of New York City. They would have to pay you a lot for that. but like in this one, I don't know, neighborhood or borough or whatever they call them. I'm California and I don't know what those things are called, right? But for a year. And so we give them a year to promote the heck out of it and be like, hey guys, we're the first ones. And so I want you to also be thinking about increasing the value of not just the product, but the release through some sort of exclusivity, because we know that that's important to them.
I like that. We have to have deeper conversations about this, because I know that you got to shoot very soon. We could talk about this definitely on a lot more deeper level. This is such a fascinating topic to me, and I hope that number one, you found this of value to you, because it is, like I said, it's one of those topics which you won't find much knowledge on. There's not many experts that specialize in this particular area of expertise. And April is the go-to girl to definitely do that. Just to wrap this up, April as well. what are you working on right now? I mean, you've been doing this for 28 years. That's a long, long time. Like, what do you see yourself in the next 10 or 20 years, apart from surfing in Costa Rica or Barbados?
What else matters, Adam? No.
Well, that's true.
You know, it's really, really interesting because I feel like I have a blank canvas. I'm a new empty nester. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is this? Certainly, I feel called to be in this space. I mean, we have methods and frameworks that people need. We're the only ones that have them. And so, actually, I'm just getting like this full-blown blueprint download from God being like, what am I supposed to do? Right now, I'll be really honest, I'm not sure. I know that I have a responsibility to help people with unique genius expand the reach of their work in the world. I'm clear about that. That lights me up. We'll continue to serve people the way that we are. Next level service. Honestly, for me, I feel like moving into working with organizations and more nonprofits, helping them really license work probably in like 10 years from now. That's not, sales and stuff, doing stuff that is really hard to monetize with organizations that could never pay me. That's probably where I'll be.
Very good, very, very good answer. For you guys that have been listening in, thank you so much. Oh, by the way, April, I just want to say thank you so much. This has been a great jam,
You're
right?
welcome. Yes, I love talking to you.
And for you guys that have been listening in, listen, if you have any further questions, please do feel free to reach out to April and the team. We're going to leave all of her show description notes and her social media links below. Please make sure that you mention the podcast, of course. And there's a little gift as well there that April has kindly donated. So make sure you go check that out. So thanks from me and April. Hopefully we'll see you back here again on The Business Strategist, and take care and see you soon. Cheers now.
Rinse knows that greatness takes time, but so does laundry. So Rinse will take your laundry and hand deliver it to your door expertly cleaned. And you can take the time pursuing your passions. Time once spent sorting and waiting, folding and queuing, now spent challenging and innovating and pushing your way to greatness. So pick up the Irish flute or those calligraphy pens or that daunting beef Wellington recipe card and leave the laundry to us. Rinse. It's time to be great.